Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and once again, summer anime stuff. So, as usual, I talk dubbed stuff, so I might be episodes behind depending on things. I might be speculating on things that may have already happened in a show, may not have happened in a show, not sure, because I'm not ahead. But there's also spoilers on some of the things I'll talk about depending on what I want to talk about. And obviously I list shows mostly purely by interest, but not always. I'll say up front whether a show is better or worse than the thing I watched otherwise. And if I dump a show, I stop talking about it. It's in my list of things I've dumped, and then I dump it. But I think I have my set of shows, and I don't think they're going to change, and I don't think the listing for them, the ranking that I'll give them internally in my head, is going to change either. But we'll start with Dandadan Cour 2, and outside of the most recent episode, which I mostly just kind of bounced off of because it was weird musicians doing weird music shit, I was really enjoying the last set of episodes where they slowed the shit down and started, fucking around with the romantic comedy stuff again. Bringing in a bunch of dudes who were, this might have been in the other review before, but the bunch of dudes who are supposedly spirit mediums, but they're actually just a rock and roll band or a death metal band or some shit like that. Trying to control Gigi's evil eye, and then bringing back the whole love interest thing, and now kind of sliding the other girl back in as well, getting things going there. Not that I expect that to go anywhere, because they've pretty much established that Okarun and Momo are kind of the thing, and they're gonna be. But I always like when they just talk, because the banter back and forth is always fun. And, Turbo Granny finally kind of getting back in the mix and being a little bit of a scamp and a bitch to everybody else is fun. Dandadan, when it slows down, is tolerable, because there are some times when the weirdness gets too much. And like I said, the last episode, not my cup of tea. Who knows? Everybody might like the weirdness, who knows? But I love the groundedness, as I've said. Toilet Bound Hanako-kun, Season 2, Core 2. This is the weirdness I can really get into. The spectral weirdness, the otherworldliness, but done from a comedic perspective, but not so fucking ramped on speed. And they've done another side story in the Land of the Grim Reaper about a girl who was tasked with being married off to the Sixth Wonder, only to basically just sacrifice herself and Nene and say, "You'll go in my place," only to have that be fought off. They got back to Aoi and Akane in the other episode as well, and their relationship and who they actually are, and digging deeper into them. And like I said, there's only so much you can do with Nene and Hanako at this point that would just kind of stomp all over everything you're doing and rewrite history. Focusing in on the other group, finally, is some breathing room. And going into these places and talking about things like, I'm really just a faker and I don't really like people and I'm just, trying to do what I want to do, but nobody respects me for it. And then the other person throwing it in their face, basically saying, "No, I know who you are and I've always been your friend, but I do know you're a bit of a bitch, but I don't care. I still like you anyway." I love that kind of stuff because it throws things back in people's faces when they think they're too good for somebody. And I love to know, because we're getting to the midway point of the season, but we're not there yet before they have to kind of get to the crazy shit. But they've done enough good stuff in this core that I'm really into it. As I've said, this is probably my favorite show, and it's probably going to stay that way. And I can't wait to get through the end of it, so where the second season is rolled in, and I can kind of talk about the show at a full glance on its own in October. That's what I kind of want to do. Because there's a lot to talk about with the show, and a lot, especially that season 2 has done to elevate it. Because I did enjoy season 1 for what it was, but season 2 has done a lot in both cores to really set itself apart and try to take the material in a lot more personal direction, which, may not always work, but I think for something like this, you can keep the weird esoteric nature of the Japanese mythology stuff, but tie it into the characters a bit more, and that's what they're going for. Sakamoto Days, Sakamoto Days is Sakamoto Days. Somebody came up and blew shit up in the Japanese assassination building, so they cleaned it up. And they were fighting through it, and they kept on fighting, and they kept on fighting, and they kept on fighting. The show is pretty much what it's going to be. They go to weird places. They do a lot of fights. Their new conceit is going to this training school for assassins to try and get certified and whatnot, even though Sakamoto's already certified. But to get the other characters certified, they've added a few other new characters, like a blue-haired girl who's a little unsure of herself, but it's probably going to end up being a badass. So it'll be nice once she kind of gets her footing. And, seeing all the crazy shit on the airplane was fun. But there are points to where, again, Sakamoto is kind of like Dandadan, where they're trying to do too much. And they're introducing characters with little dumb quirks. Like, this guy is a fucking amazing assassin, like a child soldier, but he's a neat freak at the same time. It's like, Jesus, fuck. This guy's new. Is he gonna be around forever? Then they introduced another guy who had the wires for his hands, only he got fucking nailed and rammed, and I think he died in the next episode or something like that. I don't know. This show wants to show off a lot of things all at once. But it just wants to get to its set pieces, I think. And maybe that has to do with the way the anime is structured rather than the manga is. Maybe the manga spends more time with, the interstitial stuff, but, it is in a hurry to get to places, to get to its fun assassination stuff, which is what the show is about. But again, I could use a little bit of more meat on the bones here. Dress Up Darling. They're doing a new cosplay, and they're doing kind of a gender bend sort of one, and trying to set this stuff up. And people kind of know that Gojo has been making Marin's outfits and has just kind of gone with it and gone full bore into the thing. And they're trying to do it for sure enough, culture festival or some such, because there's always a culture festival in anime and JRPGs and shit. So they gotta have one, and they have Marine doing the cosplay of a woman in a host outfit. So more fun stuff, and they're slowly kind of building they both know they like each other. They both know that they're gonna be together, but they haven't really officially gotten together. I'm thinking that's what's gonna happen at the end of this season, but who knows? It might just be another bunch of missed signals, but it's a good enough thing. Speaking of good enough, Gachiakuta showed off a new episode and a new couple of things about characters with weird giver powers. And they did a solid enough job with what they had in the last episode. The new guy having to face off against the main character, and the main character basically just shrugging off everything he did and utilizing his powers while the other guy is just kind of laughing it off. It's like, dude, bro, this is fucking weak, but I think you're badass too. But still, I'm trying to capture your stupid ass. Shit like that. And they've not fully fleshed out what the trash world is. It is Earth versus the sphere. I wonder when they're going to get back to the sphere, if at all, or if the sphere was just there as a thing. But they're not going to go this far to set up that beginning part, not for the main guy to come back to the main world, I think. So there's gonna be something somewhere. Tougen Anki. I did not see today's episode as I'm recording this, but what I saw of the last two episodes, they introduced a weirdo. And this is one of those, like, villains are tough to gauge, especially ones that are so fucking sure of themselves that they don't really come off all that threatening. And yet at the same time, they're like these weird researchy based weirdos that are so weird that even their subordinates think they're nuts. I don't know. I'm not sure about that guy. His whole thing is he crafts weird flesh oni things and meat sacks, and they send them to, he makes zombies and whatnot and sends them to do, covert ops and kill other oni, and, like, okay, that's your power and all, but I'm not, like, convinced that you're, like, the big bad, especially considering that there's other guys that I'm sure exist in the Momotaro society that are probably way stronger. I'm guessing this is just, like, the first main dude. If he lasts more than, like, 3 more episodes, I'm just going to be more and more annoyed by him and his presence, because he's, like, I'm trying to be the main villain or some bad guy, but I'm not really feeling it either. The support society and the blood transfusions to get, prosthetics and all that stuff, like people getting back on their feet after not dying, like that's a cool thing. Not being on the front lines, but showing an importance of, you have a role as a support and you need to be at the top of your game so everybody else can be at the top of theirs. That level of cool, showing that side of it. I still get the feeling that there are way too many, like, just bystander characters in this class. Like, they are not fleshing out the characters enough. Like, you get Shiki, you get the other dude with the blade for his arm, but then the others have just kind of been there, and they show off their powers here and there, but they don't really, and they just kind of exist, and I could have done without them. So unless they flesh them out in separate episodes here and there, they just feel like Shiki and then other people. And it's like, all right, I'm not really invested in you. I'm sorry. Because there's already another main dude as the teacher that gets way more screen time than you. So it's just kind of there. Leviathan. Still working. Still solid. And developing, like, Alec and Dylan's character arcs, and, the whole she's a girl doing the Mulan thing, and everybody else seems to already know that she's doing that, and she's a Mrs., like calling her Mr. Sharp, which was a funny gag. Going to Istanbul was neat, seeing, like, a different culture and a different society and their different types of walkers, and like what this alternate World War II setting can do in the perspective of different cultures and different cityscapes, and trying different things with the material that, you normally don't see those kinds of environments. Like, you don't see Ottoman aesthetics in Japanese stuff all that often, if ever. So their take on it was kind of neat. So, again, I don't know how accurate it is, but I give them credit for trying something off the beaten path a little bit, and still making this about Alec and Dylan while dealing with the war stuff. It's solid enough, and I think it's good, because I was worried that I was not gonna like it, and then after about 4 or 5 episodes, I'm just like, yeah, this is if this is the cutoff, I'm still enjoying it. With You and the Rain. As good as Lord of Mysteries is, there's going to be something about With You in the Rain that's going to probably keep it as the best non-sequel. And that just has to do with the fact that nothing happens. But it's great. Fuji has time with her dog. The dog wants to do a thing. Let's go do the thing. Let's go to a festival. Let's go to the park. Let's have fun with friends or family. Let's go to fireworks festival. Let's find our way to a shrine. Let's learn about Fuji and her friends through the guise of having this raccoon dog alien thing that can, talk via a sketchbook. Learning about how Fuji has a fandom from other artists, and almost stalkerish, but not stalkerish, but like starstruck. Totally different thing. But again, starstruck. But not delving so deeply into the writer stuff that it becomes about her writing. It's still more just about her hanging out with her pet and it being about that stuff and having nothing else to do. It's just perfect. And seeing everybody else's reactions to them being a dog or being a pet or being a raccoon or thinking it's a whatever. And then Fuji just kind of laughing and smiling and going along with it. It's just wholesome, fun stuff. It kind of reminded me with less like Japanese culturalistic stuff as like Natsume's Book of Friends. How that was more snarky, but still it just had stuff. It was doing stuff, but it was doing it from a perspective of, it's low stakes, but it's fun. And, you kind of just enjoy it as a good episode. And this is like my favorite kind of stuff. And then Lord of Mysteries. This one really is just going to hinge on being episodic and like what the episodes do and what the relationships with the main guy do. And like, because the strangeness of it and the beautiful interpretations of the magic and the Beyonder's powers, that is fantastic and well beyond anything else that any other show is doing. It looks like a freaking animated film in terms of like scope and budget, like a very freaking higher end scope. But its subject matter and its approach is on the stranger side, and there's a lot of details that I'm going to miss because it's going for like horror schlock plus Victorian setting plus the dynamic like weirdness, almost like a divination D&D fortune telling macabre setting. Like that sort of stuff is cool and it all works, but there's something lost in translation of doing all of it at once and trying to wrap my head around it that I'm probably just going to struggle with, as opposed to something simple like the way that Toilet Bound Hanako-kun does it. Because they don't have 50 million competing things going on at once. They have at most 2 or 3 that I have to follow. Or even Dandadan, for its weirdness and randomness, all I gotta know is, this guy's fighting that guy, he's gonna kill them, or they're gonna die, or something like that. The Lord of Mystery is like, I don't know if killing them works. I don't know what this other world is. I don't know where they're going. I don't know what their power set really is. It just kind of is just weird shit. Interesting shit, but weird shit. And it can be a bit much. And, I think everything will get answered eventually to my satisfaction. I think the show is very well done. But if it was to me, this one versus With You in the Rain and how simple and straightforward that is, I'm going to go with the frickin' raccoon dog. So, but it's good to have shows of that caliber and, Gachiakuta and Tougen Anki right behind it in terms of, okay, I'm really liking this. This is fine. It's a good season that I've had like 7 or 8 shows that I've stuck with, even despite so many other ones being bleh that I didn't. So I'm very happy with this season, and I'm probably going to stick with all of them. So, I've still got a ways to go. But speaking of ways to go, let's see what we have here. I've already recorded the Salty Ray episode, so I'm there. Nier Automata, the game and the anime all at once. I'll record that next week. Oh boy. Illusion of Gaia, and then Toilet Bound Hanako-kun's going to get its own episode. East 10 Nordics going into late October, and then Zenshu. This is going to be one of the rare times that I'm going to kind of dig into a show that's already being like in the primers of the seasons, but dug into on its own. Toilet Bound Hanako-kun is going to be first, But as far as like newer shows, that I've already talked about in the scope of the prime of the seasons that they were in, going back and doing a little more thorough kind of reflection on them, kind of like this one, kind of like I would do for a Salty Ray, episode or whatnot. The standard episode or standard review. That's what I'm going to get to. And Zenshu was one of my favorite shows earlier this year. I want to say it was the beginning of this year or late last year, forget which, but it was definitely one of my favorites and one I will be happy to talk about. So that'll do it for this week, and I will see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.